I'm happy to be talking about the great delegation that FIRE and Workers' World sent to the border just at the very end of last year. It was a great delegation that we went to San Diego, and one of the primary things that we were there for was to meet with organizers and activists in the caravan who had come all the way through Central America to the U.S., the so-called U.S.-Mexico border. The vast majority of the folks in this caravan are from Honduras. They're also from Ecuador, from Guatemala, from El Salvador, and what we first should recognize is that the people in this caravan are fleeing violence, police brutality, criminal gangs, fascist gangs that are all being inflicted on the population of Central America because of destabilization and because of U.S. imperialism. This is not the first caravan that has come to the U.S. border in recent years. The vast majority of these new movements and displacement of people have started since 2009, when one of the first acts of the Obama administration when they took power was to certify a coup in Honduras. The folks that are fleeing their homes are only doing so because they have no other choice. Many of them are agricultural workers, and I think that we should, in our analysis of the situation, consider that this represents the destruction of a class we don't always talk about, the peasant class in Central America. And this is part of an ongoing attack on the peasant class that is only ramping up with the ascension to power of figures like Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil. This is also part of a centuries-long assault on the indigenous population of these continents. And if anything focuses our mind more on that, I'm sure people heard about the death of the 8-year-old girl from Ecuador, Jacqueline Cal, who is an indigenous young child, as are many of the children who are now trying to, with their families, cross the so-called border. This is all one way of saying that the problems of this crisis have their roots in colonial and imperialist oppression that has been going on for centuries, as we all know. So the FIRE delegation was responding to what we now consider a contemporary crisis, but this is part of the ongoing crisis of capitalism. We did meet as soon the first day that we went across the border into Tijuana. We were able to meet up with some folks who they have in office, the border veterans. This is a group of deported U.S. military veterans, folks that had enlisted in the U.S. military for various reasons. One of the reasons is because they were promised U.S. citizenship. And particularly after 9/11, if you recall, George W. Bush, the president, as a way to sort of bolster the numbers in the volunteer U.S. military, said that one of the ways that you would be able to get citizenship, a quicker path to citizenship, would be enlisting in the military. And then when the time came to sign that executive order, it was written that you would be eligible for citizenship, which I think you'll agree is quite a difference. As a result, there are thousands of former U.S. military veterans who were then subsequently deported. One of the activists we met with, Hector Lopez, served in the U.S. military during the attack on Grenada. He was then deported in 2006. This is a man he was born in Mexico. He was immediately brought with his family to the United States. He lived 90% of his life in the United States, but then in 2006, a deportation order was written, and he now lives in Tijuana, where he is one of the first responders on the ground, helping both Mexican deportees and the caravanistas who find themselves fleeing their homes and now pushed up against this border waiting for asylum. Very briefly on the asylum process, it's a sort of lottery where families apply as a unit. They wait for they receive a number. There's just like a little tent set up, like maybe 100 yards from the border. and you get your number, and then you wait for it to be called. That wait can be as long as 2 or 3 months. And in the meantime, you have to decide. And first of all, if you miss your number being called, that's it. You have to start over and go apply for another number. But in the meantime, what do you do? I mean, the police are rounding up homeless people and refugees like they do anywhere else in the capitalist world. There are some tent cities right on the border, but then there are also better supplied and safer refugee camps 20 or 30 miles away. We went to Baratal, which is about 20 miles away, which is the biggest refugee camp in that part of the border region now. And we fire delivered, with the help of border veterans and U.S. Veterans for Peace, supplies to the refugee camp and humanitarian relief. The demands on the ask, what's needed in the refugee camp can depend day to day. There is always need for food and water and medical supplies. But at the time that we arrived, there had been torrential rains, which is sort of rare. I mean, San Diego, it was raining. It happens occasionally. But the day after these hard and incredible rains, I mean, this is a refugee camp. These are tent cities. So all the clothes, all the tents, all the blankets, all the bedding is soaked. So they just needed clean underwear. They needed clean socks. So that was, and then just general supplies to wash yourself, deodorants, these kind of things. So we were able to bring those supplies and meet with some of the activists who had been traveling with the caravan all the way back from Honduras. The youngest activist that we met was an 8-month-old little girl who was referred to as the youngest freedom fighter in the entire caravan. She was born on the way from Honduras and is now spending the beginning of her life as a young infant in a refugee camp in Baratal. On the border, there is also one thing that needs to be kept in mind is that the Mexican people are opening their communities and their hearts and their wallets to help the Central American caravanistas that are coming here. They know that people would not be leaving their homes if not for fleeing their lives. There are, of course, hard right and nativist, xenophobic elements in Mexico, as there are everywhere. The mayor of Tijuana has taken to wearing a red baseball cap that says, "Make Tijuana Great Again." He's been leading far-right demonstrations with the slogan, "Mexico First." So we think, we have to consider that, Trump is a symptom of a larger international problem, but there is this petri dish that is opening, that is contaminating the entire world. And I think the election of Bolsonaro, the collaboration with Duterte in the Philippines, these are attacks on indigenous working and peasant class folks internationally. There is, from a previous crisis, the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, there is a population in Tijuana called Little Haiti, of folks who settled in Tijuana because they decided, why risk crossing the border and being detained and deportation when there might be work to be found here and settle our lives there. And of course the Haitian population that has just arrived less than a decade ago in Tijuana is opening up their hearts and their homes to help the caravanistas. At one of the days that we were right on the border, there is a population of families fleeing from Cameroon. There's increasing displacement in Central Africa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there are now U.S. troops stationed. I say all this to make it clear that this is an international crisis, and it requires an international solution. It requires international solidarity. And I hope that the delegation that we sent to the border with fire is one of many, many delegations that we will continue to send, and the organizers that we work with, these are the start of very long-lasting relationships. One of the Honduran activists who actually is not an asylum seeker himself, but who came and joined the caravan because he just wanted to help and is an activist himself. We were talking at one point in the camp, and he said, I don't know if you're more of a Hillary Clinton guy or a Bernie Sanders guy. And I was like, I'm more of a Fidel guy myself. And he straightened up immediately. He goes, okay, well, we have some revolutionaries down here, of course. So these are the folks that are down there, and these are the folks that we have to help. So thanks very much.